Hey, what's up? Do you have a small local business? Let's talk about employees. The number one pain point I hear from really all business owners, especially if you have a local service business where there's labor or technical skills required, is employee stress and drama and all the things that go along with it, especially those darn millennials that don't seem to want to work, right? No, I'm just kidding. Here's the thing. Question number one, and I have 10 of these. I get asked all the time. I thought I'd record them and maybe it'll help you go faster, make more money, which is what I want for you. Number one, what do I do when my employees ask for a loan? What do you do when your employees ask for a loan? If you've been in business long enough, this has happened to you. And if it hasn't happened to you yet, it probably will happen to you unless you kind of approach it like I'm going to describe. And in that case, you're clever and smart, and I'm proud of you, so good job. So employees need money, right? And what happens is once they get settled in and they're comfortable, they work up the courage to say, hey, can I get an advance? I know I get paid on Friday, can I get it on Monday instead? I'll pay you back. And what it does, it creates this really kind of nightmare cycle that's depressing for them, because as you're doing this, they wind up getting the early payment deducted from their paycheck, and they can't get out of this hole. And it's really, really tricky, right? So, there's several things you can do with this. What we did in my company when I had my first service company was we had financial education classes for our staff. We would teach them basic budgeting skills. I would actually have a personal banker from the local Chase bank that we banked at come in, teach them different things, give them spreadsheets and different tools. And some of these banks will do like little classes for employees because they want them to set up, different accounts and things. And that was somewhat helpful. And I think it was a little bit. But the big one for us is that we had a loan program. And I'm not saying you have to have a loan program, but what you do want to have is a very clear upfront policy on like how it works if they want more money or if they want a loan. For example, when you're onboarding your employees, you can just say, hey, just so you know, we don't do loans, we don't do advances. You can say that, and just setting expectations alone on the front end can go pretty far. But we did do a loan program because it was a really cool perk for our staff. And it was a small service company. These people weren't making 150 grand a year. They were laborers making, 25 to 50,000 a year, depending if they're part-time or what they're doing. But everyone was entitled to a $1,000 loan per year. It's not a lot of money. It was like super low interest. I think my attorney said I couldn't make it no interest. So it was like basically free, and it had a payment schedule. It was very simple, and we'd just give it to people whenever they would want it. If for some reason someone got fired, which also happened more than once, and they still owed a loan, their last paycheck kind of goes back towards that, right? And then they get what's left over. So it's a question of managing expectations and having a plan in advance. Otherwise, it's weird. And then after you do it for one, then another one found out that guy did it, and then they want it, and then it's this daisy chain of stress for you, and I don't want that. Another common question is, how do I get more job applicants? How do I get more people applying for my job? This is easy. It's easy. Don't you know that everything is marketing and marketing is everything? Don't you know that parenting is a form of marketing? Dating is certainly marketing. And recruiting employees is hardcore, old school, regular, good old-fashioned marketing. What's your offer? Is it good? Would you want to work for you? And then how noisy are you about putting it out there? If you want to get more job applicants, there's a couple principles that'll be helpful to you. Number one, remember the principle of digging your well before you're thirsty. Tommy Mello calls this building a bench. I think there's a lot of corporate books that talk about bench building, meaning you want to have a stack of qualified applicants on your desk kind of all the time. If your company is getting legs under it and it's going, and maybe you're getting closer to $1 million and you're not as small anymore, you should have a monthly budget for recruiting happening all the time. Even when you're not hiring, you should do job interviews so that you're building your bench. So many benefits to this. Number one, if someone quits, it's not a cliff, it's a speed bump. Number two, it gives you leverage over people that are holding you hostage. You might have an employee that I call a superhero employee, and you feel like you can't lose them because no one understands how to do what they do and all this stuff. And so you let stuff slide and you tolerate really poor performance for way too long, and it chokes your business to death, not to mention your own motivation. It's really awful. I've been there. So here's the thing. You want new applicants? Make a better offer. Be more generous with your pay. Raise your prices. Level up your marketing game, and everything's easier. If you made way more money, all of these problems are so much easier. The problem isn't that you can't get applicants. The problem is you probably don't have enough cash flow to be more creative and generous with your staff, create better offers, put more budget behind your job posts. Be creative with your job posts, right? But really it comes down to marketing in every way that you can imagine. Third question is, how can I keep my employees longer? Well, I'll just give you a couple practical tips for this. Number one, obviously be an amazing place worth working for. But here's a big one. You need, when you have a new person start working with you, it's really important that they can see a roadmap, or we could call it a yellow brick road, of how they could progress inside your company. Now, my new company, Warplan, is a startup, and so I don't have all these things built out for it yet, but it's on the list, because when I hire a video editor or a producer or a social person, they're going to understand, here's where you are right now, and here's the skills you need to learn and the experience you need to acquire and the things you need to achieve to move up to this. Maybe you're a level 1, then you become a level 3. And this is huge, right? Because now people have like a light at the end of the tunnel. They have something to aim at. Where a lot of local business owners, their job just feels like a hamster wheel to the employee, because they get hired to be a carpet cleaner and that's kind of it. It doesn't sound like a very prestigious career, right? Well, what if they could become a level 3 certified carpet cleaner? Then they become the trainer carpet cleaner guy. Then you have to be a trainer carpet cleaner guy to be eligible for management. Now they're making really decent money. And then if they get into management and they do that successfully for a year or two, then they could be a satellite location owner or something. I'm making this up as I go. But the point is showing them the yellow brick road is huge for retention. Another thing that's a practical tip for retention is to give people carrots at the end of the year. So if you hire them halfway through the year, one thing I would do is I would write out a Christmas bonus. It was a gift. I didn't call it a bonus. I called it a gift. I'd write out a Christmas gift with their name and write it on a check and put it in my desk drawer right in front of them. So they're starting in May. It's about to be really busy, and I'd write out a $2,000 or $3,000 check, write it in their name, post date it for later, and be like, hey, we're generous here. We like to take care of our people, and just look forward to giving this to you at Christmas, right? Now, if for some reason they quit, they don't get it, right? It's not wages that they earned, that's why it's a gift, but it's a hook. It's called golden handcuffs. It's harder for them to quit when they're like, I really want that bonus. And that's a kind of a practical thing that you can massage and work and make it your own. But we want to be thinking asymmetrically and cleverly about our employees, because my good friend Michael Kaplan, he calls our employees, or his employees, he calls them internal customers. And I love that. That's why he built a carpet cleaning business doing over $300,000 a week cleaning carpets, okay? That doesn't happen on accident. But when you view your staff as internal customers and you view your customers as external customers, it's a better way to frame it in your mind as an owner, because you are literally there to serve both sides of the equation and build systems and processes, make sure that your marketing and your sales is on point and you know your numbers enough to kind of feed the beast on both sides. So hopefully that's helpful. Next one is, how much should I pay my employees? Well, it's a hard one to answer without having specifics. But I guess if I had a gun to my head and I had to pick an answer, it would be pay them more. Always find a way to give them more, or give them a way to go get more. Sometimes employees come and they're like, hey, I want a raise. That's not good. I don't believe in seniority or tenure-based raises, because it doesn't make sense. I don't think someone that's worked somewhere for 30 years should just automatically get more than someone that's been there 10 years. It should be based on the production, based on the value they're creating, the skills they have, right? So what you want to do is make sure they know how to go from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 to level 4. They also need to know what the max pay, the maximum pay will be for that job position that they're in ever. They should know that up front. They should know that they're starting here and there's 3 or 4 moves and it stops here. And that way they're not just randomly asking for pay increases just because they think they deserve it because they exist still. I heard someone online the other day say, someone said they had 40, it was Myron, of course, Myron Golden. He said, someone said they had 30 years experience as a forklift operator. And he's like, no, you don't. He's like, you have 2 weeks worth of experience as a forklift operator repeated over 30 years. Meaning it takes 2 weeks to learn how to do that thing and you do the same thing for 30 years. So it's not like you're more valuable as the operator person because you've done it a long time. So that might sound harsh, but it's reality. This is it's a meritocracy. That's how it works. You eat what you kill. Okay, I don't know if I answered the question, but that sounded interesting. Then we have, how do I know when I'm ready to hire? Well, I would encourage you to hire before you're ready. There's a couple caveats. If you're a super anxiety-filled, panicky person that has no budget, maybe don't do that. But if you're really serious and you're willing to make a bet on yourself, it's okay to hire before you're ready for a whole bunch of reasons. Number one, you don't want to get trapped at the bottom deliverable part of your business, because then you don't even have a business. You're just self-employed. And being self-employed is better than working for Larry at a dead-end job, but it's not as good as building a business, right? And so if you try to do everything yourself, it's harder to get out of it because you don't have time to think and work on your business instead of in your business. So the earlier you can hire, the better. I will say that you're going to make lots of mistakes, but here's the reality. The only way to get better at overcoming these obstacles and learning from these mistakes is by doing them. You have to learn by doing. There's different types of learning. Did you know that? You can learn about something. You can learn from someone. But the highest form of learning comes by doing. The highest form of learning is by doing. So make hires. And here's the other thing to keep in mind. Let's say you're nervous to hire that $80,000 a year employee or that $40,000 a year employee that you can't afford. You think you can't. It's not a $40,000 decision to make the hire. Let's say that you need 45 days to get this employee trained doing the thing, and then your time is now freed up to go sell more stuff and to bring revenue in to make this work. Well, this is a 45-day cash burn situation, right? So if they're making $4,000 a month and you need 6 weeks to kind of get it going until you can sell more, well, it's a $6,000 decision, not a $40,000 decision. And if something's wrong, you can kind of back out of it. You can hit the eject button. If it's not working, you can fire them, whatever. So don't think of it as this all or nothing big scary thing. You got to know, to build big things, you gotta do it with people. They say you can go fast by yourself, you can go far when you're with others. That's what your employees are. Okay, what kind of bonuses should I offer and how much should I pay? Okay, we already talked about how much you should pay, but what kind of bonuses should you offer? Okay, so there's different ways to do this. The way that we did it is I would figure out what the maximum amount of pay that could be paid to a person in each job position. Okay, in terms of budgeting, this is the most. Let's say it's $30 an hour for this job position. Then what I would do is I would take that $30 an hour in my brain and I would carve off little pieces of it and I would set it in different buckets. So for example, I'd take $2 an hour off and I'd say this is going to be a quarterly bonus. Okay? And then I take another $2 an hour off and say this is a monthly bonus. I might take $1 an hour off and say that it's an annual bonus. And what you want to do is you want to take the maximum that you could pay them, break it into different chunks. So maybe their base salary is $22 an hour, but they get monthly, quarterly, and annual bonuses. But it all adds up to the $30 an hour that you were planning on paying in the first place. Now, why is this beneficial? It's hugely beneficial, by the way. Well, it's beneficial for tons of reasons. Number one, it's more motivating for them to keep a carrot in front of them to chase, right? There's always another thing to get. It puts pressure on them to perform to get it. And you take these little bonuses, whether it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, and you attach metrics to them. You drive behavior with them. So if they are not filling out their paperwork, and that's making you crazy, we could have a monthly bonus program that's attached directly to the paperwork being filled out. And if it's filled out, you get it, and if it's not, you don't. It's super simple, right? If people aren't getting to work on time, if they're not getting enough reviews, you basically take your biggest pain point that's driving you nuts with your staff and build a bonus structure around solving that behavioral issue. Most of the time, your staff isn't hostile. They're just not understanding that this is really important. And that has to do with communication on your part and all kinds of stuff. But a bonus program can help a lot with that. All right, how do I motivate my team? Well, I think by aligning incentives. That's how you motivate your team. I'm a fan of this idea called figuring out your employees' love language. Love language. People are different. Are you married? I have a wife, 22 years. Is it 22? Yeah, it's 21 years. 21 years, Ashlee. And I know her love language is quality time, right? My love language is words of affirmation, and we know that about each other. Well, did you know your employees have a love language? And I'm not talking about weird, creepy, inappropriate relations with your employees. I'll tell you what the 4 are, as far as I can tell. Words of affirmation, public recognition. The third employee love language is money, and the fourth one is time. And if you look at it like this, and you want to motivate your team, what you want to do is keep an organized spreadsheet of all of your staff, what their love language is, and you want to, on a reoccurring basis, pour into that bucket. You want to put deposits into their quote-unquote love language bucket. So what that looks like in practical use is I would write out a handwritten note to someone saying, hey, I recognize you. I saw you came in early. You stayed late. Sarah said you did a great job. You got that other upsell. You're crushing it. I just want you to know I see you. You're awesome, right? And I might just leave that note in his mailbox or give it to him when he comes in the morning. And that note is like rocket fuel for that person. It's a big deal. And so that is very motivating. For another person, public recognition might be their thing, but it's not for everybody. So maybe during the team meeting, I make a point to pull Eddie up and I just brag on Eddie and we all give it up for Eddie, right? Give it up for Eddie because he's awesome. And doing that in a repeat business keeps people motivated. And then for the people that crave time, we want to give them surprise time off, paid time off. It is insane what this does for people. And you can tell when you get to know your staff which one is their core driver, or you can even just ask them. And when you give someone a Friday off and a long weekend, but you pay them for the whole day and it's totally unexpected, I call that planned randomness. I learned that from John Ruhlin. He has a great book called Giftology. When you implement planned randomness in the right employee love language, it's unbelievable what happens. It's a natural motivator, so go do that. Number 8, how do I create a training program? Training program, super boring to make, super important to have. You're totally screwed without a good one, right? At some point, you got to make one. Just realize this, there's different types of training. What I like to use is a software. Maybe the editors could pull up a screenshot of a mind map software. I use one called MindNode. MindNode, N-O-D-E, it's for Mac, but MindMeister is a web-based one. And you want to kind of mind dump out all the stuff that they need to be trained on. And then after you kind of barf out all the stuff, you want to start grouping it into logical buckets. So off the top of my head, if you had a service company, you're going to have a safety training part of your training. That's a whole thing. There's a bunch of stuff nested inside of that one bucket, right? But then we're going to have a process training. Process might be how to clock in, how to clock out, how do they ask for a day off, where do they put in their paperwork, how do they get a new uniform if they get a stain on it or they rip a hole in it. So there's process stuff. Then you have culture training. Where you're sharing the origin story of the company, where it's going and how they fit into it, right? What the vision is, what the vibe is, what the mission is, what the core values are, how you actually live by it for real, right? And so that's a third bucket. And then maybe you have a sales training, maybe you don't, but there could be 4 or 5 different types of buckets for training, but I like mind mapping. It's a hack, it's super effective, and it helps you get unstuck because you can go blah, 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 and then you organize it. Tomorrow you'll remember something else, cool, add it in there, and then shoot videos or create content around all those things, and you'll have your training program. Okay, how to hold people accountable for their work performance. I feel like we covered this a little bit. Attaching money to it is huge. If they're motivated by time, attach time to it. If you hit this goal, you get a week paid vacation. That would be like people would crawl over broken glass for that, certain people. Other people just want the money, so attach money to it, right? But you hold people accountable by creating a good culture and surrounding yourself with people that want to win. It's actually not that hard for winners to win. They feel uncomfortable when they're not winning. So depending on the vibe around your office, if it's kind of got this weird kind of sluggish vibe, or if you have some serious A players, that's really kind of where it all starts. So in terms of holding them accountable, yeah, you can have systems, checklists, performance reviews, quarterly employee, reviews. These are all practical things. Will does this with our studio guys. It's pragmatic, it's practical, but at the end of the day, they say in real estate that the money is made when you buy the house, not when you sell the house, or when you're buying assets and you're making money. It's like making a good purchase is how you get the return, like buying it smartly. It's kind of like that with employees. It's like when you make the hire, that's where the real value is. Because if you get someone that's awesome, it's rarely going to be a problem that they're motivated because they're just high performers that want to win in every area of their life. And then last but not least, what KPIs are most important for a service business? So key performance indicators, what a nerdy term. Whatever's measured will improve. Math is the path, okay? So when it comes to your staff, what are the most important KPIs? I think for your field workers, if you have a service company, your labor hour is probably the most important number. Labor hour, meaning how many dollars are generated for every 1 hour of their labor. Because if you think about it, they're like the tip of the spear front line funding the whole company. And the higher we can get that number to go, everything else goes easier, right? So if you're a window cleaning company and you're doing $75 a man hour or a labor hour, that's not that great. Can we get it closer to 100? Can we get it to 120? What would need to be true for you from a marketing and a choreography standpoint to get them to be able to push it to 100, 110, 120, 150? Pressure cleaning companies can do 250, 300, 350. And every industry is a little different. But labor hour is a critical factor. I can usually figure that out and know about this fast how profitable a company is, with some other variables, of course. And some other metrics might be callback rate. CBR, callback rate. We would measure that because we would push people to do lots of volume of revenue, but we didn't want the quality to suffer. So we blended two KPIs together, which was like their production volume, the revenue per week that they did. We mixed it together with the callback rate. So if they left a towel at someone's house or they missed a spot and had to go back, that's not good, that's bad. We would blend that, create a metric, and we would do weekly rewards and contests around that. We called it the Fine-Tuned Machine Award. There's lots of KPIs. All this stuff is interesting. Here's my question for you. Are you ready to level up? Are you ready to go all in? Are you ready to make a bet on yourself? Are you really ready? Are you really, really ready? Is it for real? Are you really ready? Do you realize that even having a local small business gives you the earning potential of a professional athlete? Do you understand that it's really true? Do you understand that time is short? Do you have a sense of urgency? Do you want to change your family tree? If that's you, you're my people. That's what this channel is for. And my encouragement to you is to lean in, go deep, and implement this stuff. At the end of the day, learning for edutainment's sake is a good way to waste some time and have some fun, but action and implementation is the name of the game, because when you are following a system, a protocol of implementation, even if it's flawed and imperfect, you become inevitable. Your success becomes inevitable. It's over. So I hope that's an encouragement to you. Like, comment, share, do stuff. Tell me where you're from. I'd love to meet you, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed what you watched, click the video on the left to watch the previous upload. And if you want one of my personal favorites, click the video on the right. And of course, don't forget to hit the middle to subscribe so you never miss an upload. Thank you again for being on this journey with me.